Hello, my name is Patrick Stanley. I'm going to be having a discussion with you about transportation. To give some background about myself, I'm a MBA student here at North Carolina A&T State University, and I'm studying for the supply chain management concentration, and I'm expected to graduate this May. And also, I have my bachelor's degree in supply chain management from North Carolina A&T State University, and I obtained that during the spring of 2019. Now, after 2019, I learned that I needed to learn more about transportation and supply chain in more depth, and that led me to apply to the MBA program. And the MBA program has really helped me a lot in developing my skills and expertise in order to be more competitive in the transportation career field. For myself, I'm originally from Four Oaks, North Carolina, which is a rural area in Johnston County, and is about 45 minutes southeast of Raleigh. And my interest in supply chain management really started with my interest with the railroads, and the railroads play a huge part in transportation and supply chain management based on its strengths and capabilities. The areas of employment I've been in prior to coming to North Carolina A&T has been retail, warehousing, and production, and those three areas are also supported by transportation. Next, I want to have a discussion about supply chain management and operations management because those two areas are supported by transportation. And then I'll also discuss about the five modes of transportation. Basically, supply chain management is basically getting the product available to the consumer at the right place, at the right time, in the right condition, and the right amount. And without transportation, that process could not happen. And basically, how a basic supply chain basically functions as suppliers, production, warehouses, and into the final consumer. In the beginning of a supply chain, suppliers have to be able to transport raw materials to their facilities to transform it into components that the production facilities can use. And both sides of that supplier, when they transport materials in and then when they send materials out to production, those are supported by transportation. And then on the production side, transportation is used to ship the final product from the production facility to the warehouses or directly to the customer. And then the warehouse can also ship products to the customer also, and those stages are supported by transportation. And supply chain management can be looked at as three areas as operations, procurement, and logistics. And depending on what context, some of these can be used interchangeably. And next, I'm going to discuss operations management because that's actually supported by supply chain management and transportation. Operations management is the process of transforming the raw materials into a product or service that consumers need. And that process is supported by transportation and supply chain management. And also, that supply chain management transportation that could be considered a operation itself. Now, the five modes of transportation are basically air, motor carriers or trucks, rail, water, and pipeline. And each mode of transportation has its strengths and weaknesses based on cost, speed, reliability, capability, capacity, and flexibility. And those three factors also have an effect on. I'm going to introduce two terms, which is lead times and delivery times. Because with those strengths and limitations, those have an effect on lead times and delivery times. Now, lead time is basically the amount of time that a material for is basically is the amount of time a material become a product becomes available to a consumer from the time it is ordered to the time from the time it's ordered until the time he actually receives it. And if you're transportation, depending upon what mode of transportation that's used, it could be that lead time could be very short or it could be very long. And also delivery times, that could be viewed as a subset of lead times because during that lead time, delivery time between the two stages is very crucial. And if those delivery times are very long, that by extension increases lead times. And with the modes of transportation, their strengths and weaknesses have an effect on your on lead times and delivery times also. Because, for instance, where air has the advantage of speed, but is not as flexible, and it can be very expensive. And then on the other end of the perspective of the spectrum, water that has the least cost, but it doesn't. But it's not flexible and it's not very quick. Trucks have trucks have the most flexibility of all the modes of transportation, but they can be expensive. Railroads are somewhere in between, depending on what type of product it is, and railroads are limited in their flexibility, but their strengths can be just the sheer amount of capacity that they can carry at one time. Now, as far as careers in transportation supply chain, the most visible ones are usually the truck drivers or delivery drivers, and they are part of transportation. But some of the ones, the lesser known ones that are not seen, are basically purchasing managers, supply chain managers, transportation schedulers, coordinators, and forecasting. Those are some areas that tend to get overlooked. But mostly with transportation, most people are usually thinking about the most visible ones, such as the trucks, airplanes, and the trains. The area now, once I graduate, I'm going to be working for a logistics company, and I'll be working in a support area, more than likely with forecasting or inventory or any other type of support. Um, and students should always consider transportation careers, or even at minimum, just consider them as a hobby because either way you get to learn. You have the best of both worlds. You get to learn about what you're interested in, and then why not get paid for it? If you have any questions, just get in contact with one of our representatives, which will later get in contact with me. Appreciate your time. Thanks.